All my followers, welcome to another video. And the video today is on a 2004 Citroën Xsara. And the car came to me because of the engine and the ESP or ABS light on. They are off at the moment, but they come on randomly. You delete the faults and they go away. Then after a few starts of the engine, they will come again. And what is funny as well is that I first diagnosed the car using the using the DS708. And I'm gonna somewhere here put the pictures of the faults on the engine first. And the faults that were on the ESP module. Okay, that fault on the engine saying microcontroller fault or internal fault, something like that, that was a little bit worried to me, and I didn't 100% trust the DS708, so I've plugged Lexia, and the faults were completely different. I first deleted the faults to start from scratch. There's loads of faults in there for loads of stuff, so it doesn't really matter. I've deleted everything. And the fault starts coming up again, and I haven't deleted the faults now. Is these two faults? Okay, these faults sometimes come accompanied with programming failed due to valve stack or something like that. And I have this fault here as well. Now, sorry about that. I forgot that's touch screen. Now, this one here, CAN communications. I don't think there's a problem with the CAN communication. The problem is that information is invalid. And funny enough, the first thing I want to see is if this fault is a fault that is just, I don't know, if it's a separate fault or if it's related to that fault. Because what I think is that one is causing that one. Now, if I enter there, I can see this fault code happened is P0405, and it happened at 2634 RPMs, 59 degrees. It's gonna see the other one. Look at that, 2634, exactly the same engine speed. So these faults, they happen exactly the same time. So one fault creates the other one. Now, the EGR valve is not connected to the CAN network. Okay, it's connected straight to the engine module. So, which means that fault is caused by that. So I believe that fault is what is causing the engine torque signal to be invalid, because obviously it's going to affect the engine torque. So now we're going to go back and we're going to see what's in the ESP module. And that's it. No communication with the engine management ECU. I don't think that's the right fault. I think the right fault. I need to stop touching the screen. I think the right fault is incorrect value received. Okay. So I think what I'm going to do is I think I'm going to remove the EGR and see what's wrong with it. I need to get rid of the EGR fault before I go anywhere. Okay guys, so the first thing I've done, I put everything kind of back on, but the first thing I've done is I removed the EGR off. To remove the EGR, you need to take this intake, you need to take this bracket here that holds the fuel filter, and you need to take the air filter from the back, and then you are able to take the EGR out. I removed the EGR, which is, this is just the controller. I've cleaned the other end, the other side where this goes, cleaned everything, put everything back on. The valve actuates okay, but it still triggers the fault. So what I've done is, this is another EGR that I bought, and I remove only the controller, and I put the controller back on. So I've replaced, this time I replaced only this, only the body, only this. So yeah, that's what I've done. I've replaced only the electronic part, because the fault, if you remember, was saying, oh no, I don't know if you've seen that one, but one of the times, but when I went to see if we can still go there and see that same fault. If we are able to see that same fault, then it's gonna be good, and you see exactly what I meant. Okay guys, so you can't really see that now, I'm afraid, because this one already is okay. So, oh, come on. So I don't know if you can see that. Last EGR valve programming value correct. First EGR valve programming correct. That was coming up as incorrect. Okay. And even after I've cleaned the valve, the old one, after I've cleaned everything, put everything back on properly, everything lubricated, as you might have seen, what happened was the same fault was still coming up. This was still saying correct. And another thing that I've noticed as well was that here, where it's now on 28%, oh come on, where the EGR valve opening control says 29% now, that was pretty much stuck at 7%. Very rarely would move from 7. So, and yeah, that like I said, was coming up with failed tuning programming, and I believe was circuit A feedback control or something like that that was faulty. But this one came up as okay pretty much straight away. Another thing that you need to do, guys, which I've done when I've replaced the other one, is when you replace the EGR valve, or you take it off and clean, or whatever you might do on it, you need to come here, specification, no, what's the name? I forgot now. Specific operation for maintenance and part replacement, and you need to see if the part you've touched is part of reprogramming, and it gives you a list here of the cars. And if you come here, Xsara Picasso, actually both engines, doesn't matter which one, actually all of them, the Picasso with the 9HY, 9HZ or 9HX engines, the EGR valve, you can see there, the EGR valve needs to be reprogrammed or reinitialized. So all you need to do is this, and then it tells you what do you want to initialize. So in my case, I've done that yesterday, but obviously because there was a problem with that valve, was keep faulting doing the programming. Obviously I put this one in, as you have seen, and when I actually got to here, was already saying programmed correctly. Basically when you turn the key on, because the initialization was already enabled from yesterday. As soon as I put it on, he obviously he went through the cycle and he programmed fine. So I was not able to show you those values showing incorrect and all that. So yeah, so the only fault I have now is for the preheating relay circuit. I'm gonna have to find out. It might be just that is just the relay. I don't think I'm gonna touch this. Probably I've not been asked to touch this, but let's just one last thing, just see how the EGR valve is behaving. If it's opening and closing okay. So it's showing about 30%, around 30%, which is exactly where it should be, idling. And when you press the throttle, it should go to 0. And it's doing just what it's supposed to be doing. So I think my next step is gonna go for a drive, test the car. Actually finished, put everything back on, but go and test the car. But I'm quite convinced that that EGR fault was the one that was triggering that torque fault, because obviously the EGR will affect the torque of the engine, and that torque value that was constantly being sent to the ABS module or ESP module obviously was triggering that fault on the ABS module. If there was no ESP, I doubt that would make a difference, because the ABS only would not need the torque information to activate, to work, but obviously the ESP will need. So yeah, I believe that, and just go a little bit more in depth how that little body works. It works a little bit like the accelerator pedal, which has two signals and they need to correlate each other. The ECU does not rely only on one feedback value. Just in case if one faults, that means the ECU wouldn't know what to do. So basically there's two values, they need to correlate each other for the ECU to take the reading. The EGR valve in this case is exactly the same. There's two feedback values that have feedback into the ECU, and once again they need to correlate each other. If they do not correlate each other, it will trigger a fault. So yeah, it's time to go and test the car, but I'm quite convinced that we solved the problem. Okay, just got back home from about a 50 miles drive, and that's it. The problem's been resolved. No faults came up. I took Lexi with me. Nothing came up. When I go back home, I just diagnosed the car again. There's no codes in there, so everything looks good. So yeah, so was only that EGR valve, guys. I hope you find this video useful. Hope you enjoyed the video. Any questions, comments, put them below, and like always, thank you for watching.